First of all, thank you everyone for joining us on the panel, people in the audience overall. Without wasting time, I'd like to kind of start with the first question overall. We have people here from varied industries particularly. Have Harshil who is more on the creative side of things, have people on the finance side of things, have people on that communication technology side of things, have a vast set of things to learn from them. But my first question is particularly for Jahid, for that matter, sir. Financial literacy is still something that's picking up in India as a country overall. And you being leading the content and digital part for one of the largest financial institutions in the country today, what do you think about how you are leveraging, I mean, just wanted to understand how you are leveraging content marketing today to kind of reach to the core of the country or the Bharat that we call it overall, and have that financial literacy mission going on.
Okay, thanks and for picking me up first. Okay, but before that, I think we were all looking like bouncers. Saugata helped us save that. Thanks. But yeah, okay. First of all, I think the way you have done the whole event is very much like content, natively integrated, evening over a cocktail, not like a proper panel. I think so. That's good. Now, how do we spread financial literacy, right? So now if you see literacy in the country is around, let's say, 70%, India's population. Financial literacy abysmally low. Multiple data points hovering around 10 to 15%. That's around it. Not only us, next, even UK, who's like, let's say we follow the same kind of a curriculum structure, if at all, even they are abysmally low, right? I think this is a global phenomena, apart from some of the advanced countries like maybe US. Okay. So now what we are trying to do is, okay, growing the country's ecosystem of getting financial inclusion done as a course curriculum in the schools, okay, or in the colleges. It's a very separate conversation that's going on. But let's understand how consumerism is changing nowadays. Okay, people have, okay, word of mouth is one aspect. Asking parents and friends is still one aspect. That still prevails, no doubt about that. But today, the paradigm has shifted from that being the source of truth to research being the source of truth. Okay, financial, let's say today when you're taking a financial decision, some of the data points was interesting to see that a test drive of a car has reduced from 3 to only 1 to 1.5. That is because the entire journey of even selection of a car is happening digitally. And I think you have the entire length and breadth of YouTube videos, the aggregators around the world who are supplying you with enough and more content to give you a feeling in the entire simulation world, which car you want to go for. And then the final test drive is happening. Okay. So I think that's the power of content. And that is something that we are trying to leverage, how we are trying to reach out people across multiple decisioning point. Let's start broadly, if I have to see, I'll take a minute more. Discoverability, engagement, and finally it's buying, right? Today, the discoverability has changed. From a voice recognition, we have moved to voice understanding. So discoverability has moved to around, let's say, 50% search, that to voice-led search. When it's type, you are like stilted shorthand, 2-3 words. When you voice, it's a long format. When you're doing long format, the entire content has to be more conversational, more articulative, and a long format content, right? So what are we doing to educate them during their research phase is very important for us. Then when he comes to engage, how are we engaging with him with personalized content on the website or whichever own property he's landing up to. And the last part, which is very important for us, is omnichannel remarketing across the multiple journey of drop-off points. People think remarketing is only 2 steps more to go, 3 steps more to go. And that's the biggest mistake that we people do as marketers. Okay, if a guy is not responding to you after twice or thrice, that means he's averse to the ads. Try to educate him, be with him. How to improve your civil score, how to get rid of debt trap, right? How to kind of, let's say, how to select the best credit card. Let him consume content, let him be your kind of, can we guide him? And that's one of our purpose, to educate people and make him like made sense of money, right? So that's what we do. The last thing is we try to be as native as possible. Today content has short format, right? If I try to be a long format in Instagram Reels, it's doomsday for me, right? So we try to be relevant, contextually present, as attractive as possible, though the content might be boring, but we try to make it as attractive as possible natively to the platform where the people are consuming content. And that's what we try to do in form of content marketing.
Well, that's some good and super insights overall. My next question is particularly for Pradeep, and Pradeep wanted to understand from you, particularly the entire BFSI mutual fund space is built on the factor of trust with your consumer all throughout the way they earlier.
So I would also want to touch upon the earlier question that you asked very quickly. I slightly beg to differ that, we also are like, Bharat is one big mandate for us, right? I slightly beg to differ that financial literacy in India is not there. I think having lived all over the world, I understand that the concept of money is very much ingrained in Indians. For example, you should not talk about XIRR, but you should talk about, okay, kitne saalon mein main apna paisa double kar dunga, right? It's the same concept, but people understand it in a different way. And when you are generating content and you are trying to educate people, I think you should think Bharat as well as to what are the concepts they understand and how they manage money. And that should be sort of the core of your content strategy when you are creating it, right? Anyways, moving on to what you said, so generally if you consider MarTech as such, the impact is that of like, you see these diamond jewelries, right? Means wherein there's a small pieces of diamonds which come together to give the illusion of a, solitaire, right? Now, you are very right. Gone are the days when I thought of 4 big things that I will do and I will hit my marketing targets or my, customer targets. You need to do 1,000 things and incrementally they need to add up to something, right? Before MarTech actually became the sort of norm, there was nothing that was connecting all these things and setting up those, small pieces of diamond into one place such that it can give the illusion, right? So that's what we use MarTech for. Very right in terms of the trust factor that you spoke of. See, because it is a multi-touch journey across the board, unless you have that technology backing it up, you can't hand over a customer from one channel to the other. And the most important thing is when somebody experiences something and has shown that interest and is coming into your ecosystem, the first thing that should resonate with that particular person is what he has seen. That handover needs to happen, right? So from a trust point of view, we use MarTech across different channels to provide one view of the customer and give them a consistent experience. It need not be a great experience, right? What people need is consistency. Even if it is not mind-boggling, you might have a fantastic experience in one place and then it goes on and it drops. That is a really bad thing to do because you would have spent money on giving that great experience. So driving that consistency, having that, handover from one channel to the other is what builds trust and is helpful in, getting customers on board.
Super interesting that way around. I think my third question is particularly for both Saugata and Harshil, both of you. You've been Harshil, first for you particularly, asking you about, there has been this entire conversation around creativity, technology and data that has been going on. And ROI-led marketing is where the world is heading towards. That's what I have been hearing from marketers around. Because Harshil, you've been the face behind your team has been the face behind some of the most famous viral gone campaigns that we have seen for various brands. Want to understand from you, how have brands, which are mostly your customers, particularly perceived that? And you as a creative and technology transformation company, look forward to that.
Okay, so I think it's, the way we look at MarTech is, for us at Schbang, the way we look at MarTech is that we think this is potentially a great global service that we can deliver sitting out of India. So one of the things that we've looked at, and we said that, for us as a narrative, it was that all of our major competitors are either American, British, French, Japanese. You see the holding companies, and we see ourselves sitting together as an Indian challenger. Big challenge came for us saying that, hey, how will an Indian company sell creative services in Europe or in the UK? And we're now, we're just going to be launching now in the UK and in Amsterdam, which is on the back of a MarTech service. Since the IT boom per se, India has not seen a big services story, and we think that MarTech is the potential to deliver that big services story for India. It requires a very different kind of thinking, because the kind of thinking that we require for creativity for some of the brands that we serve and have the opportunity to serve, there's those kind of people who have a very different DNA, and then there's the tech guys who have a very different DNA. It's kind of marrying those two DNAs, which is where the fun really is in building a kind of company that I have the opportunity to run. I think we're slowly learning. So we're kind of bringing cases from one place to the other. So just one quick case that I want to talk about. And I agree with both my fellow panelists in terms of how it's about consistency of journey and about solving for the consumer. The creative folk don't necessarily, they instinctively think about that, but what drives them is the hooky message. And when you see numbers like this, where a campaign can have 50,000 pieces of content, you tell that to a copywriter who's interested in fame-based creative, they don't love that. They're not going to really resonate with that. And I think the challenge is to be able to use some of that skill and be able to use some of this tech skill to be able to marry it together. So, that's really where the challenge is, and that's what we're going to solve for. I think the other thing, just a point I want to leave on the table, especially with respect to MarTech, is that I go back to 2008, where social media became really sexy. Everybody wanted to leave college and enter a career in social media. I think we're at that dawn of that stage with MarTech right now, because it has the ability to be that, again, especially with Indian services, has the ability to be the global, that platform that we can deliver. And and I think consistency is key, but we could all talk about multiple examples on that, and all of us have good casework on that. But we're trying to bring the tech DNA into the creative side, and I think that's where the interesting part is for us as an industry.
No, that's inquisitive the other way around. I think so. Saugata, I am asking you from a personal front, because the same question, because you have been on both sides earlier. You have worked in like the top agencies across the countries, having led charters for them. And now when you go to actually work on the brand end, dealing with now actual customers before which you were working for overall, want to understand from you, how do you perceive that, and what has been that mindset shift for you?
That's a pretty good and a difficult one to answer. So I'll put it this way. I'll not answer your question. I'll try and say a few things which hopefully will resonate with the audience, and also build upon what my friends have been saying, right? So see, starting point for me is technology is nothing but an enabler, right? It is the intent with which you engage with technology. It is the problem that you identify which you look to solve with technology, right? Since we are talking about MarTech, we're talking about digital ecosystems, right? There are four pillars that when I spoke to customers that have kind of gleaned out from those discussions, which actually sit very well, whether it is from a creative point of view, whether it is from an audience engagement point of view, or whether it's from a technology continuity of journey point of view, right? The first is to understand what is the state of digital readiness or digital first mindset the audience that you're talking to exists or has, right? Now, whether it is an enterprise customer in my current line of work, or it is a B2C customer like you, me, everybody in this room in my previous line of work, what's the digital state of readiness, digital first mindset, right? Second is as an enabler. How can we build hyper-connected ecosystems? And I think you spoke very well about the fact that the drops shouldn't happen. The journey should be seamless, consistent. And again, whether we talk about a B2B enterprise or we talk about an individual customer, the ecosystem needs to be hyper-connected, right? The third and the most, probably one of the more important things in addition to the other two, is the end customer experience. And when you're talking about an enterprise, then you also can throw in the element of employee experience, because they are the users, they are the ones who are communicating it further to the downstream, right? And last, and personally to me the most important part, is the ability to build digital trust, right? We're speaking about financial literacy, we're speaking about transactions, and to your point, right, one of the biggest reasons why even today probably my father's generation doesn't really want to do a GPay for a significant amount is because they don't trust. Mera paisa kahin chala to nahi jayega, right? So if you evaluate these four pillars, right, from a digital first mindset to the ability to build digital trust, I think MarTech touches upon each of these components in a very unique way, right? Whether it is enterprise environment we're talking about or a B2C environment we're talking about, right? Now add to this, and then to your question, now coming back to your question, when I was on the other side of the table serving accounts, serving clients, this was a constant source of a piece of communication that used to come from my end saying, how are we doing on these four pillars? On this side of the table, this is a constant question that keeps going back to everybody who's out in the field talking to customers, saying, how are we doing on these four areas? Right? Now that translates into various forms of execution. Now that, and Harshil can talk more about it, right? That translates into execution in the form of understanding what is the digital state of readiness in a particular country, in a particular continent, vis-a-vis another, right? What is the level of hyperconnectivity both in terms of infrastructure, how is the network connectivity in those countries, how is the level of security in those countries, and readiness for migration to cloud and so on and so forth. Then what is the employee and customer experience we are promising, and last but not least, what is the amount of digital trust that we are looking to build. Now once we have got these points mapped out, that's when the creative brief comes in. That's when the copywriters, get their, their marching orders as to go build stories, build right content, and bring in various flavors, bring in various formats, and weave the whole story together. So at some point, like I started by saying, technology or MarTech is an enabler. How we strategize, how we plan to use it to deliver the end objective that we've identified upon, I think makes all the difference.
No, thank you so much. Thank you. There's been both level. I mean, the answer to my question as well as the initial thing that you told, both of them makes complete sense. Just one last question I would have for each one of you, and wanted to understand when you work with technology today in any format altogether, with this entire content tech thing coming up, with say GPT-3 coming up, all AI-driven content being created, what has been your personal trust factors with these technologies when you use it? Is it more in the experimentation phase right now, where you are trying and get to kind of see the kind of outcome it has to give? Or have you got phenomenal outcomes and now you trust that? Just wanted to understand from each one of you. I think we can start with Jahid, same order again.
Yet to build the whole trust factor on this tech part of it. Okay. So see, there is translation, which is absolutely not working. There is transliteration, right? And then there is transcreation, right? I think AI, for as much as the word is being used and abused nowadays, okay, from content point of view, okay, be it there are tools that we have tried our hands on in terms of, let's say, videos getting created or transliterated on the fly because of the kind of requirement that we have, or even in terms of content. Okay. Now I think what we have to understand is the dialects, the usage, the way a customer consumes content, okay, and how he kind of, while he's consuming, what is it that's going in his mind, okay. It's not as linear the way we think, and hence we can do a transliteration and just put it out over there. That won't help, especially, and that's when the trust factor comes in, okay. These things go a long way to build, especially coming from an established brand like HDFC Bank, okay. So hence, we are still taking, a part of it, maybe 50-60% can be transliterated, then it, on top of it has to be created, right, and then finally it's rollout. It's obviously impacting the TAT, right, the go-to-market, but I think it's better safe than be sorry later, right. So that's our 2 bits on it.
Pradeep, want to hear your thoughts?
I think pretty much the answer across the board will be that we are still yet to really build that trust in it, because the problem with content is that there is, let's take something that we all know, right? Means especially for me, from a personal context, I know 6 Indian languages, right? Coming from South, I can speak fluently most of the South languages, Hindi and English and all these things. And whenever I see these dub movies, even though they are tremendously successful in Hindi, I couldn't tell you how much the effect is diluted when I see, a KGF 2 in Kannada and, this thing in Telugu versus I see it in Hindi. So it is very tough to capture that, right? Now coming to the technical aspect of it, right? For this particular technology to really start churning out, you need to have copious amounts of data. In spite of access to the stacks that you are talking about, there is no data on the Indian stack. So actually there's no stack for Indian data, right? And the sample space being much smaller for every major, the 15 major Indian languages that you speak of, the sample space is still very small, even if it's 6 crores, 7 crores. If you capture every interaction of theirs, then also building an a model to really replicate what the person is trying to say is almost impossible. And I'm talking about language because that's the easiest to do. Yeah. If you go to the other forms of content, it means text is the easiest, next is voice, next everything that you talk of really goes into the creative realm. I think technology has always accelerated much faster than we thought. But I still think there's some way to go, just like the dub movies.
No, thank you for that. In fact, Harshil, you have played, I think, a much more with these tools, not just from a translation perspective, but the NLG tools that are coming in, the neural language generation tools that are coming in. Want to hear what has been your experience with yourself as well as the customers across?
Yeah, so I'll actually talk about a customer case and try to talk about it side by side with it. So, I mean, first comment is I think it's now man with machine and man much more integrated with machine. So I think machine is still not solving everything that man can do, but it's man with machine and the friendship is a little better than it used to be. So I take a case of a global ecosystem, digital ecosystem enabler that we work with. And I'm just trying to spin a story here, so, bear with me in terms of the exact numbers. But broadly, this ecosystem enabler has said that, we get a lot of our business from 2,000 priority customers. So because they've said we get our business from 2,000 priority customers, they said we want to deploy a tech stack that allows you to hyper personalize for each of these 2,000 priority customers. So let's say SBI is a priority customer. You come on to the website and the website talks to SBI saying that, hey, this is why this particular ecosystem that we have suits SBI. And alternatively, if Tesla comes, then it says, hey, this is why the ecosystem suits Tesla. It's also pulling in the white papers from finance, or it's pulling in the white papers from auto. So it's kind of giving you content at your fingertips. It's rewriting the content for different industries, for different customers. On top of that, this this ecosystem enabler also wants the website to be able to pull different content for different geographies, because they sell in Latin America, they sell in Africa, they sell in the North America and Asia, all different kind of products or different stacks. So you need to build content now at scale, kind of the stuff that you guys are talking about, which is that, I need to build for continents, I need to build for priority customers, and I need to push it out, and I need to be better safe than sorry. So if you need to be doing that at the implementation stage, that's what we're trying to do, is train our people. One is on the, the tech guys need to be able to talk to the content guys. So the tech guys need to be able to make that hyper personalization stack and the account-based marketing stack and the drift chat flows to be personal. Because when you got a customer from Tesla, the chat bot has also got to say Tesla. When you got a customer from Tesla, the account-based marketing has also got to say Tesla. So there's a lot of moving parts which you need to put together nicely. So the tech guys have got to talk nicely to the creative guys. And that is one part of the problem. And then is to be able to deliver all that content at scale, which is the second part of the problem. So that's how we're doing man with machine. And some of the things that you're talking about, GPT-3, etc. I think I just see a lot more content writers being able to use some of these tools and say, hey, I've put this in, give me 4 options to be able to write it, and then I'll pick and choose, and then I put it in. So that's how the writers are using it right now. When it comes from a designing perspective, the way we're doing, and I think, guys like Figma and InDesign, they've made good strides in terms of how the design stuff is also being done. I'll give an example of some stuff, creative that we've done for Swiggy Instamart. When we shot the campaign, you'll see, I wish I could show you the visuals, but essentially you have 2 lines of headline, you have 4 lines of body copy, and you got the image in the center. So what you're then doing is programming the creative to say that all the different assets which got to be in the center in one folder, all the body copies got to be in one folder, all the headlines in one Excel sheet and one CSV for the body copy, and you click and tuck, you're getting 200 creatives in a matter of seconds. So what designers used to use for resizing. So it's still not automation, it's assisted at an execution level, and I think people are enjoying that. I think, I mean, that's a constant challenge, right? Like as service providers, we need to be able to satisfy clients to be able to do that, and that's what we're having fun doing. And that first case that I spoke to about, I mean, I have the opportunity to work with Saugata on that, and we won a Digital Marketing Asia Echo Silver on that at Asia level on hyper personalization and account-based marketing and all of that stuff. So it's good to share the stage with him also.
No, good. Saugata, your thoughts on that front, I think this is connected the chain.
I think Harshil has spoken, very eloquently and well about what his team is enabling for us. So I'll not go and belabor that point. But going back to your original question, right, that does one look at it with a certain degree of wariness, or does it one embrace it wholeheartedly? My personal philosophy is two questions. Okay, one is, what is the customer or consumer insight, right, which has led to building of this particular technology product? In other words, what is the customer pain point that you're trying to solve for, right? And the second thing is, and I'm saying this with a view of not only the Indian languages, but also probably hundreds of languages outside of India, which potentially can benefit if it was to work for us. What is the expected customer action which is elevated from what they are currently doing when they're engaging in the language that they're currently engaging with? If the answers to these questions are satisfactory, I'm all for experimentation, right? Because end of the day, customer experience is something that I spoke about a few minutes back. Yeah. It fits into that bill, and if the answer is satisfactory, all for experimentation. We'll find the money.
No, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for those insights. I think a lot of validation for us of how we are looking to build Pepper overall. Similar mindset, and that's just validation for us. So thank you so much for that time. I think thank you all for listening us patiently. Bas.